Superman is often described as the most powerful hero who ever lived. That description misses the point. Power is not what defines him. What defines him is what he chooses not to do with it. Because Superman does not live in a world that can stop him. There is no wall he can't break, no army he can't disable, no authority he must obey. And that creates a problem no other hero truly faces. Most heroes are shaped by resistance. They learn limits because the world enforces them. They fail, they get hurt, they are corrected. Superman isn't. When nothing can oppose you, morality stops being reactive. It becomes deliberate. Every intervention becomes a precedent. Every solution risks becoming dependence. Every silence feels like guilt. If he saves everyone, the world stops learning how to stand. If he steps back, suffering continues by choice. That tension is not fictional. It's structural. Because this is what happens when someone becomes too capable. When competence outgrows supervision. When no one is left to question your decisions. At that point, rules don't disappear. They become optional. And optional morality is the most dangerous kind. Superman doesn't ask, "Can I fix this?" He already knows the answer. The real question is quieter and heavier. If I act, what kind of world am I creating? This is not a story about strength. It's a story about restraint. And restraint, when it isn't forced, is the hardest form of responsibility. At some point, unlimited power stops looking heroic and starts looking managerial. Because once you can solve everything, every problem quietly becomes your responsibility. This is where Superman's dilemma sharpens. Not because he wants control, but because the absence of control invites it. If no one else can stop the war, why shouldn't he? If no system can protect the innocent fast enough, why wait? This is the moment where philosophers begin to matter. Nietzsche warned that morality changes when someone rises above consequence. Not because they become evil, but because obligation turns into choice. Superman doesn't break rules. He risks replacing them. And that shift is subtle. The danger is not tyranny. The danger is efficiency. Hannah Arendt saw this clearly. She argued that the most harmful power is not the violent one, but the one that becomes normal. When solutions arrive too easily, responsibility slowly disappears. If Superman intervenes everywhere, institutions weaken. People stop deciding, the world adapts around him. And if he doesn't, he carries the knowledge that suffering continued because he allowed it to. This is the weight unique to him. Not the pain of sacrifice, but the burden of permission. Every action asks the same question. Am I helping this world survive or teaching it to depend? This is why Superman doesn't fear becoming a villain. He fears becoming necessary. Because once the world needs you to function, you are no longer a hero. You are a system. And systems don't answer to morality. They replace it. Eventually, power stops asking what it can do and begins defining what must remain undone. This is where Superman's choice becomes moral. Immanuel Kant argued that morality only exists when action is freely chosen, not when it is imposed by force or necessity. A world where Superman decides everything is a world where no one else truly decides at all. If every outcome is optimized, freedom becomes decorative. People obey reality instead of shaping it. Superman understands this instinctively. His restraint is not hesitation. It is respect. Respect for a world that must be allowed to struggle, fail, recover, and grow without him holding it together. Unlimited power tempts efficiency, but efficiency is not ethics. Solving every problem does not make a world better. It makes it quieter, flatter, dependent. So Superman chooses a harder role. Not ruler, not savior, not final authority. Witness, guardian of boundaries, not outcomes. This is the part that matters beyond fiction, because adulthood often looks like this. You become the most competent person in the room, the one everyone turns to, the one who can fix it. And slowly, without noticing, you stop letting others try. You carry the load, you centralize the decisions. You become necessary, until nothing works without you. Superman shows us the cost of that path. True responsibility is not doing everything you can. It is choosing what must remain unfinished. Because power only becomes moral when it accepts limits it does not need. That is not weakness. That is restraint. And restraint, when freely chosen, is the highest form of strength. The temptation of unlimited power is not domination. It's simplification. When someone can solve everything, complexity feels inefficient. Delay feels irresponsible. Process feels unnecessary. Superman resists that temptation. Not because he doubts his strength, but because he understands its side effects. A world protected too completely loses the ability to protect itself. A society spared from consequences stops developing judgment. So Superman stays present, but not central. Capable, but not indispensable. That balance is uncomfortable. It means accepting outcomes he could prevent. It means watching mistakes unfold without stepping in to correct them. But that discomfort is the price of autonomy. This is where the story leaves fiction behind, because adulthood is filled with smaller versions of the same dilemma. Being the parent who could decide everything, the leader who could control every variable, the professional who could fix every mistake, and slowly realizing that doing so doesn't create strength around you. It drains it. Superman's restraint is not about trust in humanity's goodness. It's about trust in humanity's necessity. The world must be allowed to struggle, or it will never learn how to stand. Unlimited power only becomes ethical when it refuses to become the center of gravity. That is why Superman doesn't rule, doesn't govern, doesn't redesign the world in his image. He protects the space where others can choose. And in a world obsessed with optimization, that choice to leave things unfinished may be the most responsible act of all. There is a version of heroism that feels comforting, the one where someone stronger arrives and removes the problem. Superman rejects that version, not because it's wrong, but because it's incomplete. A world saved too often forgets how to save itself, and a person protected from every consequence never learns responsibility. So, Superman chooses presence over control, guidance over command, boundary over dominance. He stays close enough to help, but far enough to allow failure. That distance is not indifference, it's patience. And patience is the virtue most power refuses to learn. Because waiting feels like neglect. Restraint feels like absence. Doing less feels like doing nothing. But it isn't. Sometimes the most meaningful action is refusing to become the solution everyone depends on. This is why Superman is not a fantasy of strength. He is a meditation on limits, on what happens when someone who could be everything chooses to be enough. And this is where the story quietly reaches us. Because adulthood is not about becoming capable. That part happens naturally. Adulthood is about knowing when your capability should step back, when to guide instead of fix, when to support instead of replace, when to let others carry weight they can only learn to carry by trying. Superman doesn't save the world by ruling it. He saves it by refusing to become its center. And that choice, to remain powerful without becoming necessary, may be the hardest responsibility of all. In real life, power rarely looks dramatic. It looks practical. It's the person who always knows what to do, the one who decides faster, the one who fixes what others break. Over time, that competence changes the room. People stop questioning, stop trying, stop carrying weight that feels unnecessary when someone stronger is present. This is where Superman stops being symbolic and becomes uncomfortably familiar. Because the danger is not abuse, it's overfunctioning. You step in to help, then to prevent mistakes, then to avoid inefficiency, and eventually to avoid disappointment. What begins as responsibility slowly turns into quiet control. Not because you want power, but because relinquishing it feels reckless. If you don't decide, things might go wrong. If you don't intervene, others might fail, and they will. That is the point most people miss. Failure is not a flaw in the system. It is how responsibility is learned. Superman understands something many competent adults struggle to accept. A world protected from failure never develops judgment, so he resists the urge to optimize everything. to become the final answer, to turn capability into authority. Instead, he accepts a harder role, one that looks like restraint, but functions as trust. Trust that others must carry weight they were never meant to avoid. Power becomes ethical here, not when it performs flawlessly, but when it leaves space for others to grow into responsibility. That is not abandonment. That is leadership without domination. There is comfort in believing that someone stronger is watching, that if things go too far, someone will step in and fix it. Superman could be that someone, always. And that is exactly why he refuses to be. Because a world that relies on rescue never learns responsibility, and a life lived under constant protection never becomes its own. Superman stays close, but not decisive. Present, but not commanding. He allows uncertainty to exist, risk to remain real, consequences to matter. That choice is not heroic in the usual sense. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't resolve cleanly, but it sustains something more fragile: agency, the ability for others to choose, fail, adjust, and grow without being overshadowed. This is why Superman endures when other fantasies of power collapse. He is not an answer to the world's problems. He is a reminder that answers taken too far become control. Unlimited power is not dangerous because it corrupts. It is dangerous because it simplifies, and Superman refuses simplification. He accepts the tension of restraint, the discomfort of stepping back, the patience of unfinished outcomes, because some limits are not meant to be overcome. They are meant to be held. And in a world obsessed with mastery, the decision to remain powerful without becoming necessary may be the most responsible choice anyone can make.